Marcus Kane forced himself to breathe through his mouth as he descended the spiral staircase. His plasma rifle charged and ready. The stench of fear and agony permeated the air of the Velthari prison ship. But nothing could have prepared him for what he found in the deepest cell. She hung suspended by anti-gravity shackles. Her body inverted, arms spread wide, in a grotesque parody of crucifixion. The alien woman's silver-blue skin was marred by ritualistic scarification. Fresh wounds weeping luminescent fluid that pooled beneath her. Her species was unknown to him, but her suffering was universal. The Velthari had outdone themselves in cruelty. "Jesus Christ," whispered Rodriguez, Marcus's second-in-command, as he swept the chamber with his weapon. "What the hell did they do to her?" Marcus approached slowly, his scanner detecting faint life signs. The woman's eyes fluttered open completely, black, like looking into deep space, but somehow conveying intelligence and pain that made his chest tighten. She spoke in a language that sounded like wind through crystal caves, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't understand," Marcus said, kneeling beside her suspended form. "But we're getting you out of here." The universal translator on his suit crackled to life, processing her words with mechanical precision. "Why? Why do you help me? Your species. Unknown to me." "Because this is wrong," Marcus replied, his hands already working on the shackle mechanisms. "No one deserves this." The locks were biometric, designed to respond only to Velthari neural patterns. But Marcus had spent 3 years studying their technology. Ever since they'd declared humanity a lesser species and begun their systematic extermination campaigns. His modified scanner found the frequency, and the shackles clicked open, collapsed, and Marcus caught her before she hit the floor. Her body was lighter than he'd expected, almost hollow-boned, but her grip on his armor was surprisingly strong. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns carved into her skin weren't random, they were words. A living manuscript of torture, written in her own flesh. "My name is Lyrian," she gasped as Rodriguez helped support her other side. Was the voice of the ethereal collective. "They took me 6 rotations ago." 6 rotations? Rodriguez asked. "Nearly 2 years." Marcus calculated, his jaw clenching. "They've been torturing her for 2 years. Lyrian's black eyes fixed on his face. "You are human. The Velthari speak of your kind. With hatred they say, you are violent, unpredictable, dangerous." "They're not wrong," Marcus said grimly, helping her to her feet. "But we're also the only species stupid enough to assault a Velthari prison ship to save strangers." Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Their infiltration had been discovered. Marcus activated his CUM unit. "Phoenix, this is Raven. Package secured. We need immediate extraction." "Copy that, Raven. Base 7 in 90 seconds. As they moved through the corridors, Lyrian stumbled but refused to be carried. "Why?" she asked again. "Your species gains nothing from this. The ethereal collective fell 3 cycles ago. I am the last of my kind." Marcus paused, looking into those infinite black eyes. "Because that's what humans do. We save the last of everything." The Velthari ship shuddered as Phoenix's boarding torpedo breached the hull. Marcus half-carried Lyrian through the smoke-filled corridors, while Rodriguez provided cover fire. The prisoner's bare feet left smears of that strange luminescent blood on the deck plating, but she moved with increasing strength, as if freedom itself was healing her. "Contact, 12 o'clock, Rodriguez shouted, his pulse rifle spitting energy bolts at the advancing Velthari soldiers. The insectoid aliens clicked and hissed their fury, their compound eyes gleaming with predatory rage. Marcus pulled Lyrian behind a bulkhead as plasma fire scorched the air where they'd been standing. She pressed her back against the metal chest, heaving, but her eyes were alert and calculating. "Give me a weapon," she demanded. "You can barely stand," Marcus protested. "I have been standing for 700 rotations of torture. I can stand for 7 more minutes of revenge." Rodriguez tossed her a sidearm. Lyrian caught it with fluid grace, her movements suddenly predatory. When she stepped around the corner, the weapon seemed to become part of her. 3 precise shots dropped the advancing soldiers before they could react. "Remind me never to piss her off," Rodriguez muttered. They reached the breach point as Phoenix's engines roared to life. The human ship was sleek and angular, designed for speed and stealth rather than the bulky intimidation of Velthari vessels. As they crossed the energy bridge between ships, Lyrian paused, looking back at her prison. 700 rotations, she whispered. They wanted the location of the ethereal archive, our species' entire history, compressed into quantum crystals. Did you tell them? Marcus asked. Her laugh was like breaking glass. They never asked the right questions. They assumed torture would break me. They do not understand that my people feel pain as music, and music as memory. They made me remember everything. The ship lurched as Velthari fighters began their pursuit. Marcus guided Lyrian to the medical bay, while Rodriguez headed for the weapons console. Phoenix's AI, called Athena, began immediate diagnostic scans. Fascinating, Athena's voice echoed through the bay. Her cellular structure is crystalline-based, with quantum entanglement at the molecular level. She's not just remembering. She's literally living in multiple temporal states simultaneously. English, Athena, Marcus said, checking Lyrian's wounds. The torture didn't break her. It made her stronger. Every cut, every burn, every moment of pain has been converted into quantum information. She's become a living data storage system. Lyrian's eyes widened. The archive, they didn't just want to find it, they were trying to create a new one. Using me. The ship shook as enemy fire struck their shields. Marcus felt the familiar surge of combat adrenaline, but something was different. Looking at Lyrian, seeing her strength, despite everything she'd endured, he felt a protectiveness he'd never experienced before. Phoenix, evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Get us to the Sol system. Maximum burn. Sir, that's 18 days at full acceleration. We don't have the supplies for a passenger. Then we make do. As they jumped to hyperspace, Lyrian gripped his hand. Her touch was cool, almost metallic, but somehow comforting. Why do you risk your ship, your crew? For me. Marcus thought of Earth, of the billions of humans who had died in the Velthari invasion, of the refugee camps and burning cities, of the hopelessness that had driven him to take increasingly desperate missions. Because for the first time in 3 years, I'm not just fighting against something, I'm fighting for something, for someone. Her black eyes reflected the stars streaming past the viewport. The ethereal collective believed in the sanctity of all consciousness. We died for that belief. Your species. She paused, studying his face. Your species might be the only one that shares it. The medical bay became their sanctuary during the 18-day journey to Earth. Lyrian's wounds healed with remarkable speed, the luminescent scarring forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living art. Marcus spent hours watching her recover, ostensibly monitoring her vital signs, but really just marveling at her resilience. Tell me about the ethereal collective, he said on the third day, as she attempted to sit up without assistance. We were architects of thought, she began, her voice growing stronger. Not builders of stone and metal, but sculptors of consciousness itself. We could link minds across vast distances, share memories and experiences, as easily as breathing. Could the talent dies with isolation. I am the last voice, but I can no longer sing the great harmony. The silence. She touched her throat, where the deepest scars formed a collar of pain. They cut more than flesh. They severed my connection to the eternal song. Marcus reached out, hesitating before touching her shoulder. The contact sent a shock through both of them, not painful, but electric, like touching a live wire that carried thoughts instead of current. I felt that, Lyrian gasped. How is that possible? I don't know, Marcus admitted, but he didn't pull away. What did you feel? Your grief. The weight of your losses. A planet burning, people screaming, but also your determination, your refusal to surrender. Her eyes widened. You're not just a soldier. You're a guardian, a protector of the weak. I'm a killer, Marcus said flatly. I've taken more lives than I can count. No, her hand covered his. You're a shepherd. The wolves fear you, because you protect the flock. This is why you saved me. Not from kindness, but from duty. From love. The word hung between them like a challenge. Marcus had avoided emotional attachments since the war began, knowing that caring meant vulnerability. But Lyrian was different. She wasn't just another refugee to be protected. She was a kindred spirit. Another guardian who had lost everything but refused to break. The Velthari were wrong about humans, she continued. You're not violent by nature. You're protective. There's a difference. Try telling that to the species we've wiped out. Name one that didn't threaten innocence first. Marcus couldn't. Even in humanity's darkest conflicts, they'd never struck first at civilians. Always soldiers against soldiers. Always with rules and limitations that their enemies found baffling. The ethereal collective studied thousands of species, Lyrian said. Most develop intelligence to dominate their environment. A few develop it to dominate other species. But humans, You developed intelligence to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Even your wars are fought to prevent greater suffering. Pretty words, Marcus said, but without conviction. Truth. She stood, testing her balance. I can see it in your neural patterns. Your species doesn't just fight for survival, you fight for the right to exist. For everyone's right to exist. Phoenix's intercom crackled. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Seoul Defense Command. They single quotes, confused about our passenger. Marcus and Lyrian exchanged glances. Patch it through. Admiral Torres's weathered face appeared on the screen. Kane, please tell me you haven't started a new war by kidnapping some alien dignitary. No kidnapping involved, sir. This is Lyrian, last survivor of the Ethereal Collective. The Velthari have been torturing her for information about their archives. Torres studied Lyrian with calculating eyes. And you decided to stage a rescue mission without authorization. Sometimes authorization comes after the fact, sir, indeed. Torres's expression softened slightly. Miss Lyrian, you're welcome on Earth. But we need to know, are you carrying any classified information that might compromise human security? Lyrian stepped forward, her bearing regal despite her scars. Admiral Torres, I carried the entire history of a dead civilization. Not as data, but as living memory. I offer it freely to humanity, in exchange for sanctuary and the chance to see my people's legacy preserved. And in return, I ask only to live, to heal, to find purpose again. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. She's not just asking for sanctuary, sir. She's offering to share everything she knows about Velthari technology, their weaknesses, their strategic plans. All of it, Lyrian nodded. Every secret torn from my flesh, every plan overheard during my captivity. I give it all to the species that values one stranger's life over their own safety. Torres smiled for the first time in years. Welcome to Earth, Lyrian. I think you're going to like it here. Earth hung like a blue-white jewel against the darkness. Its surface scarred by war, but still beautiful. Lyrian pressed her palm against the viewport, her black eyes reflecting the planet's light. Marcus stood beside her, watching her expression shift from wonder to something deeper. It's so alive, she whispered. I can feel it even through the hull. The biosphere pulses with consciousness. You can sense that. My people were empathic. We felt the emotional resonance of living worlds. Earth. It's in pain, but it's also defiant. Like its children. Phoenix descended through the atmosphere, toward Luna Station, humanity's primary refugee processing center. As they passed through the debris field left by the Velthari's first assault, Lyrian's grip tightened on the railing. They did this to your homeworld. 3 years ago, we lost 2 billion people in the first week. Marcus's voice was steady, but she could feel the rage beneath. They targeted civilian populations first, trying to break our will to fight. Did it work? What do you think? She smiled, the expression transforming her scarred features. I think they made a strategic error. They assumed you would react like them with fear and submission. Instead, they united you in purpose. Luna Station was a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and towers, home to nearly 50 million refugees from across the galaxy. As Phoenix docked, Marcus watched Lyrian take in the diversity of species, moving through the corridors. Humans worked alongside Zentari, diplomats, Korthok engineers, and dozens of other races who had found sanctuary among the stars. I've never seen anything like this, Lyrian said. So many different minds, all coexisting. We're good at adapting, Marcus replied. It's what kept us alive. Dr. Alina Vasquez met them at the airlock, her medical scanner already active. So you're the reason my husband launched an unauthorized rescue mission, she said, studying Lyrian with professional interest. Husband Lyrian looked between them, confusion clear. Alina and I were married 5 years ago, Marcus explained. She's the chief xenobiologist here. And I'm about to become very busy, Alina added, her scanner beeping rapidly. Your cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases. I'm reading quantum entanglement patterns that shouldn't be possible in biological tissue. The Velthari were interested in those patterns, Lyrian said carefully. They believed they could weaponize our empathic abilities. Could they? Not the way they imagined. But yes, in theory, an ethereal could be used to create a consciousness disruption field. It would require, she paused, looking at Marcus. It would require willing sacrifice. Elena's expression darkened. They were trying to turn you into a weapon. A weapon that could destroy the collective consciousness of entire species. Make them docile, controllable. Lyrian's voice was bitter. The ultimate slavery device. Marcus felt the familiar cold fury building in his chest. They were going to use you to break the will of every free species in the galaxy. Would have, if not for you. She turned to Alina. Your husband saved more than one life. He saved a future of conscious thought itself. Alina smiled, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. Let's get you to the medical bay. I want to run some detailed scans. Make sure there's no lasting damage from your imprisonment. As they walked through the station's corridors, Lyrian marveled at the refugees they passed. Each species had found its niche in the community, the Zentari, managing diplomatic relations, the Korthok maintaining the technical infrastructure, the humans providing leadership and protection. This is what the ethereal collective dream of, she said softly. Not unity of thought, but harmony of purpose. Each voice distinct, but all singing the same song of survival. It's not perfect, Marcus warned. We have conflicts, disagreements, sometimes violence. Of course, perfect harmony is death. It's the discord that creates beauty. The Velthari never understood that. They want uniform silence, not complex melody. They reached the medical bay, where Alina began setting up her equipment. I'll need to map your neural pathways, understand how your empathic abilities work. If we're going to integrate you into our community, we need to know how to protect you from mental contamination. Mental contamination. 50 million minds in close proximity, Marcus explained, some of them carrying trauma, grief, rage. If you're empathic, the emotional noise could be overwhelming. Lyrian considered this. Or it could be exactly what I need. The Velthari tried to break me through isolation, cutting me off from the great harmony, but perhaps he looked at the bustling activity beyond the medical bay windows. Perhaps I can find a new harmony here. You want to connect with the refugee population. I want to help them. My people were healers of the mind as well as communicators. If I can ease their suffering, give them hope, ... She met Marcus's eyes. I can find purpose again. Alina looked up from her instruments. That's incredibly dangerous. We don't know what prolonged exposure to alien thought patterns might do to your neural structure. I know, Lyrian said calmly. But I also know that living without purpose is not living at all. I've survived 700 rotations of torture. I can survive this. Marcus felt that electric connection again, stronger now. Not just attraction, but recognition. They were both guardians, both protectors who had lost everything, but refused to abandon their calling. Then we do it together, he said. Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore. The neural mapping took 3 days. Alina worked tirelessly, her instruments probing the quantum structures of Lyrian's consciousness while Marcus remained nearby, his presence somehow stabilizing her readings. The data revealed something unprecedented. Lyrian wasn't just empathic. She was a living bridge between different forms of consciousness. It's remarkable, Alina explained, showing them the holographic displays. Her neural pathways can adapt to any cognitive pattern. She's not just reading emotions, she's translating entire thought processes from one species to another. That's how the ethereal collective achieved unity, Lyrian said. We didn't force conformity, we enabled understanding. Each species could maintain its unique perspective while sharing in the collective experience. Marcus studied the data, his tactical mind already seeing the implications. You could do the same here, bridge the gaps between refugee populations, help them understand each other. More than that, Alina added, you could help them heal. Shared trauma, processed through multiple perspectives, loses its power to destroy. The Zentari might understand human grief differently, but they can still help carry it, and the humans might teach the Korthok about hope, Lyrian said, her eyes lighting up. While the Korthok show everyone the beauty of logical problem-solving, each species contributing its strengths to shore up the other's weaknesses. It's never been attempted on this scale, Alina warned. The risk of psychological contamination is enormous. Everything worth doing is risky, Marcus replied. The question is whether the potential benefits outweigh the dangers. Lyrian stood, her movements now fluid and confident. I've made my choice. I've spent 700 rotations in isolation, cut off from all contact except pain. I won't spend another day in voluntary exile. The first session was held in the station's central amphitheater, a vast space designed for community gatherings. Representatives from 12 species sat in concentric circles, each group maintaining careful distance from the others. Lyrian stood at the center, her scarred hands extended toward the crowd. I ask each of you to think of home, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the acoustic space. Not the place you left, but the feeling of belonging. The sensation of being exactly where you should be. Slowly, carefully, she began to weave their thoughts together. The Zentari's crystalline logic merged with human intuition. Korthok mathematical precision blended with Valmeron artistic expression. Each species contributed its unique perspective on the concept of home, creating a symphony of understanding. Marcus watched from the observation deck, Alina beside him. She's not just translating, Alina whispered. She's creating something new, a hybrid consciousness that preserves individuality while enabling perfect communication. Is it safe? I don't know. But look at their faces. Below, the representatives were experiencing something unprecedented. The Zentari diplomat was crying impossible for his species under normal circumstances. The Korthok engineer was laughing, his rigid emotional control temporarily overwhelmed by shared joy. The human refugees were smiling for the first time in years. Home is not a place, Lyrian said, her voice now carrying harmonics from all 12 species. It's a state of being, a moment when you are fully yourself, fully accepted, fully connected to something larger than individual existence. The session lasted only an hour, but its effects rippled through the station for days. Species that had barely tolerated each other began collaborating on projects. The Zentari started teaching human children their mathematical games. The Korthak began incorporating artistic elements into their engineering designs. The community was transforming into something unprecedented, a true melting pot of consciousness. But the sessions were taking their toll on Lyrian. Each night, she collapsed into Marcus's arms. Her neural pathways overloaded from processing so many different forms of thought. Alina monitored her constantly, adjusting medications and neural dampeners to prevent permanent damage. You're pushing too hard, Marcus told her on the 7th night. You're going to burn out your own mind. I'm finding my purpose, she replied, her voice weak but determined. For the first time since my capture, I feel like I'm making a difference. Not if you die in the process. Then I die fulfilled. The Velthari wanted to use me to destroy consciousness. Instead, I'm using myself to expand it. There's poetry in that. Marcus held her close, feeling the tremor in her exhausted body. There's also suicide in it. The station needs you, but not at the cost of your life. The station needs what I can give it. If that requires everything I have, then that's what I'll give. He was beginning to understand why her people had been called the Ethereal Collective. They weren't just empathic, they were willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. But humanity had learned something the Ethereals hadn't. Sometimes, the greatest service was staying alive to serve another day. Then we find another way, Marcus said firmly. A sustainable way. Because I'm not losing you now that I've found you. The attack came at dawn, station time. Marcus was reviewing security reports when the proximity alarms screamed across Luna Station. Through the observation windows, he could see the distinctive angular shapes of Velthari battleships dropping out of hyperspace, their weapons already charging. All personnel to emergency stations. Admiral Torres's voice echoed through the corridors. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Marcus found Lyrian in the medical bay, Alina frantically disconnecting her from the neural monitoring equipment. The alien woman was pale, her recent sessions having drained her more than she'd admitted. How many ships? Lyrian asked, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. 12 battleships. Escort fighters, Marcus replied, checking his sidearm. They're not here for conquest. This is a retrieval mission. For me, for what you represent. The potential to create unified consciousness among the refugee populations. They can't allow that kind of cooperation to spread. Alina sealed the medical equipment into emergency storage. The evacuation shuttles are already launching. We can get you to the surface before. No. Lyrian stood, her movements deliberate. Running won't solve this. They'll keep coming, keep hunting me, until every sanctuary is destroyed. It ends here. Marcus grabbed her arm. You're not thinking straight. You're exhausted, overextended. We get you to safety, then we plan. There is no safety. Her black eyes met his. Not for me, not for anyone, as long as the Velthari see me as a threat. But there is another option. What are you talking about? The weapon they wanted to create, the consciousness disruption field. I can generate it, but not the way they imagined. Not as a tool of oppression, but as a weapon of liberation. Elena's face went white. The neural feedback would kill you. Your mind isn't designed to handle that kind of output. My mind has been reshaped by 700 rotations of torture. I'm not the same person who was captured. I'm something new, something they couldn't have predicted. The station shuddered as the first wave of Velthari fighters strafed the outer hull. Marcus felt the familiar surge of combat adrenaline, but it was tempered now by something else: desperation. He'd found something worth protecting, something worth living for, and he was about to lose it. There has to be another way, he said. There is. Lyrian touched his face, her fingers cool against his skin. You help me do this right. Not as a weapon of destruction, but as a gift of understanding. Instead of disrupting consciousness, I expand it. Show every Velthari in the fleet what they're really fighting for. That's insane. That's human thinking. Direct, violent, effective. She smiled. I've learned much from your species. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is not destruction, but revelation. Marcus understood. The Velthari believed they were fighting inferior species, maintaining the natural order of dominance. They'd never experienced the perspective of their victims, never felt the weight of the suffering they caused. If Lyrian could force them to experience the consciousness of their prey. You're talking about forced empathy on a massive scale, Alina said. The psychological trauma could drive them insane, or it could drive them sane. Show them what they really are, what they're really doing. Lyrian was moving toward the central amphitheater. Her purpose, clear. The ethereal collective died because we couldn't bring ourselves to force understanding on others. But consciousness imposed is still consciousness gained. The three of them reached the amphitheater as the station's defenses engaged the Velthari fleet. Energy weapons lit up the space around Luna Station, but Marcus knew their shields wouldn't hold for long. The refugee ships were already streaming toward Earth, carrying 50 million souls to safety. What do you need? Marcus asked. The neural amplifiers from the integration sessions, Elena's quantum resonance equipment, and ... double quotes. She hesitated. You, both of you. I can't generate enough psychic energy alone, but if you anchor me, provide stability. We could all die, Elena pointed out. We're all going to die if we don't try, Marcus replied. The entire refugee population, every species that's found sanctuary here. This is our chance to end it. As Elena activated the equipment, Marcus took Lyrian's hand. The electric connection was stronger now, charged with desperation and determination. Promise me something, he said. What? Promise me, you'll come back, that you won't lose yourself in their minds. I promise to try. The neural amplifiers came online, their hum filling the amphitheater. Outside, the Velthari fleet was moving into final assault position. In minutes, they would breach the station's defenses and begin boarding operations. Now, Lyrian said, her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of her physical form. Show them what it means to be human. The moment Lyrian's mind touched the Velthari fleet, the universe exploded into sensation. Marcus felt it through their connection, the sudden overwhelming influx of alien consciousness, millions of insectoid minds driven by instinct and hierarchy. But beneath their collective hatred, he sensed something else. Fear. The Velthari were afraid, not of death, but of obsolescence. They'd built their entire civilization on the principle of dominance through superior aggression, and humanity's refusal to submit challenged their most fundamental beliefs. They weren't just fighting for territory, they were fighting for the right to exist as they were. I can feel them, Lyrian gasped, her body rigid with concentration. So much pain, so much anger. They're drowning in their own rage. Alina monitored the neural readings, her face pale. Your brain activity is off the charts. The quantum entanglement is spreading through the entire fleet. You're connected to every Velthari consciousness simultaneously. Through the connection, Marcus experienced fragments of alien memory. The Velthari homeworld, a harsh desert planet, where only the strongest survived. Generations of warfare that had refined their species into perfect killing machines. The discovery of faster-than-light travel and the intoxicating realization that the galaxy was full of weaker species to dominate. But now, through Lyrian's empathic bridge, they were experiencing something unprecedented. The perspective of their victims. The terror of human civilians during the first bombardment. The grief of Zentari parents watching their children die. The desperation of Korthok engineers trying to build weapons against an implacable enemy. They're fighting it, Lyrian said, her voice strained, trying to reject the foreign emotions. But consciousness, once awakened, cannot be easily suppressed. The Velthari fleet had stopped firing. Through the observation windows, Marcus could see their ships hanging motionless. In space, their formations broken. The neural storm was spreading through their command structure, forcing each warrior to confront the reality of their actions. It's working, Alina breathed. Their combat effectiveness is dropping to zero. But the cost was enormous. Life signs were fluctuating wildly, her neural pathways overloading from the strain of processing millions of alien minds. Marcus gripped her hand tighter, trying to anchor her consciousness to his own. "Stay with me," he urged. "Don't lose yourself in their thoughts." "I'm not losing myself," she replied, her voice echoing with harmonics from 1,000 different species. "I'm finding myself. This is what I was meant to be, a bridge between worlds, a translator of consciousness." Through the connection, Marcus felt the moment when the first Velthari commander broke. Admiral Krestak, leader of the assault fleet, suddenly overwhelmed by the accumulated grief of 10 billion murdered civilians. His insectoid mind, evolved for predation and dominance, couldn't process the magnitude of suffering he'd caused. Other commanders followed. One by one, the Velth hierarchy crumbled as each warrior experienced the true cost of their warfare. They felt the love of human families torn apart, the determination of Zentari diplomats working for peace, the quiet dignity of Korthok engineers maintaining life support for refugee populations. "This is what consciousness means," Lyrian said, her voice now carrying the weight of every species in the galaxy. "Not the ability to think, but the ability to feel, to understand that your actions have consequences beyond your immediate sphere of existence." The neural storm reached its peak. Every Velthari in the fleet was experiencing the collective consciousness of their victims, forced to confront the moral implications of their actions. But instead of driving them insane, the revelation was transforming them. Marcus could feel their hatred dissolving, replaced by something they'd never experienced before: empathy. "They're changing," Alina said, her instruments detecting massive shifts in the aliens' brain chemistry. "Their aggression centers are shutting down. They're experiencing what we might call enlightenment. Or evolution," Lyrian corrected. "The Velthari are discovering that consciousness is not a zero-sum game. One species awakening doesn't diminish another's, it enhances it." The transformation spread beyond the fleet. Through quantum entanglement, the consciousness storm reached other Velthari ships across the galaxy. Military installations, colonial outposts, even the homeworld itself began experiencing the awakening. An entire species was evolving in real time, forced to confront the reality of their victims' consciousness. But the effort was killing Lyrian. Her neural pathways were burning out, her quantum-entangled cells destabilizing under the strain. Marcus could feel her slipping away, her consciousness fragmenting across millions of alien minds. "Pull back," he begged. "You've done enough. Let them process this on their own." "I can't," she whispered. "The connection is too strong. If I withdraw now, the transformation will be incomplete. Some of them will revert to their old patterns. Then we'll deal with them later. I'm not losing you for a maybe." "This isn't a maybe." Her grip on his hand tightened. "This is certainty. I can feel it in their thoughts. The Velthari are becoming something new, something better. They're discovering that the universe is vast enough for all forms of consciousness to coexist." Readings showed critical neural collapse. "Lyrian, your brain is shutting down. You have minutes before permanent damage. Then minutes will have to be enough." Marcus felt her consciousness expand one final time, reaching every corner of the Velthari collective. She was imprinting something on their racial memory, not just the experience of their victim's consciousness, but the knowledge that consciousness itself was sacred, that every thinking being, regardless of species, had the right to exist, and grow, and dream. The storm reached its crescendo, and then, suddenly, stopped. The neural amplifiers fell silent. The quantum resonance equipment powered down, and Lyrian collapsed, her consciousness finally separated from the vast network of alien minds. "Medical team to the amphitheater," Alina called, but her voice was thick with grief. Marcus knelt beside Lyrian, her head cradled in his lap. Her eyes were still open, still intelligent, but something fundamental had changed. The spark of connection that had linked them was gone, burned out by the magnitude of what she'd accomplished. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Through the observation windows, they could see the Velthari fleet. The ships were still there, but their weapons were powered down. One by one, they were broadcasting surrender signals. "It worked," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "The entire fleet is standing down." "You did it," she smiled, the expression peaceful despite her exhaustion. "We did it. Humans and ethereals working together to save consciousness itself." "Don't talk like this is goodbye," Marcus said desperately. "Alina can fix this. We have the best medical technology in the galaxy. Some things can't be fixed," Lyrian replied. gently. But some things don't need to be. I'm not dying, Marcus. I'm evolving. My consciousness is spreading across the quantum matrix, becoming part of something larger. Alina knelt beside them, her scanner showing the impossible aliens. Neural patterns were stabilizing, but at a completely different frequency. She's not dying, Alina said in wonder. She's becoming something new. Her consciousness is quantum entangled with every species she touched. She's becoming a living bridge between worlds, a permanent one, Lyrian confirmed. The Velthari transformation will need guidance. Someone to help them navigate their new understanding of consciousness. And the refugees will need help too, processing the trauma of war and finding new ways to coexist. Marcus understood. She wasn't dying. She was transcending, becoming something more than individual consciousness, a living embodiment of the connection between all thinking beings. Will I ever see you again? He asked. Every time you look at the stars, she said. Every time you help someone in need. Every time you choose understanding over violence. I'll be there. 6 months after the consciousness storm, Luna Station had become the hub of the galaxy's first truly integrated civilization. The Velthari fleet had not only surrendered but requested permission to join the refugee community. Former enemies worked side by side, their shared understanding of consciousness creating bonds that transcended species barriers. Marcus stood in the observation deck, watching a group of Velthari younglings play with human children. The beings moved with the same curiosity and joy as their mammalian companions. Their consciousness storm-awakened parents, having taught them that intelligence was meant to be shared, not hoarded. She would have loved this, Alina said, joining him at the window. The integration sessions are working better than ever. Without the strain of active translation, the different species are learning to understand each other naturally. She's still here, Marcus replied. I can feel her sometimes, in the moments when understanding breaks through. When a warrior chooses mercy over violence, or when a human child learns to appreciate Centauri mathematics, she's in all of it. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Some Velthari had resisted the consciousness awakening, attempting to maintain their old ways of thinking. But their own people had stopped them, the enlightened majority refusing to allow regression into their former brutality. Admiral Christ, the former assault fleet commander, had become one of the most effective advocates for interspecies cooperation. His transformation from ruthless predator to empathic leader demonstrated the profound changes possible when consciousness was truly shared. The ethereal archive has been integrated into our databases, Alina reported. Lyrian's people left behind more than just memories. They left a roadmap for consciousness evolution. Every species that studies it comes away changed. Changed how more empathic, more cooperative, more willing to see beyond their own immediate needs. Alina smiled. It's like she planted seeds in the collective unconscious, and they're finally starting to grow. Marcus nodded, feeling a familiar warmth in his chest. The electric connection he'd shared with Lyrian was gone, but something else had taken its place, a sense of purpose that extended beyond individual survival to encompass the protection of all conscious beings. The council voted today, Alina continued. The Luna Station model is being expanded to 12 other systems. Every refugee population will have access to consciousness integration therapy, and the Velthari full citizenship, with the same rights and responsibilities as any other species. They're actually leading the charge in several areas. Their military expertise is invaluable for defending against the remaining hostile factions. Through the window, Marcus watched a mixed group of species working together on a new habitat module. Humans providing leadership, Velthari offering tactical planning, Centauri contributing diplomatic solutions, Korthak handling the technical implementation. It was exactly what Lyrian had envisioned. Not unity of thought, but harmony of purpose. There's something else, Alina said hesitantly. The quantum physicists have been studying the consciousness storm's effects. They think they've found a way to communicate with her directly. Marcus turned, hope flaring in his chest. How? The quantum entanglement patterns in her neural matrix are still active, spread across the galactic consciousness network. With the right equipment, we might be able to establish a dialogue. Are you sure it's safe? No, Alina admitted. But she sacrificed everything to create this new reality. Don't we owe it to her to try? Marcus considered the risks, the potential consequences of tampering with forces beyond their understanding. But he also thought of Lyrian's final words, her promise to be there whenever understanding triumphed over violence. Do it, he said, but carefully. I don't want to disrupt whatever she's become. I'll need a few weeks to prepare the equipment. And Marcus. Alina touched his arm. She's not the same person who was tortured on that Velthari ship. The consciousness storm changed her fundamentally. She's part of something larger now. I know, Marcus replied. But she's still her. The part that chose to help strangers. The part that valued all conscious life, that's still there. I can feel it in everything that's happening around us. As if responding to his words, the mixed group of children below suddenly stopped playing and looked up at the observation deck. For a moment, their eyes seemed to reflect the same infinite depth that Marcus had seen in Lyrian's gaze. Then they smiled and returned to their games, leaving him with the distinct impression that he'd just been acknowledged by something vast and benevolent. She's watching over all of us, Elena said softly. The eternal guardian, protecting consciousness itself. The way she protected me, Marcus murmured. The way she protected everyone. The quantum communication array filled an entire section of Lunar Station's research wing. Dr. Reginald Voss, the project's lead physicist, had worked tirelessly to create a device capable of interfacing with quantum-entangled consciousness. The machine hummed with barely contained energy, its crystalline components resonating with frequencies that existed between dimensions. The theory is sound, Voss explained to Marcus and Elena as they reviewed the final preparations. Consciousness isn't Gernitz distributed across the quantum substrate that connects all sentient beings. Think of it as a living internet of thought. And this will let us talk to her, Marcus asked. It should allow for basic communication. But remember, she's not the individual you knew. She's part of something much larger now, the collective. Unconscious of every species she touched during the consciousness storm, Elena monitored the bioneural interfaces, her expression carefully neutral. The risk assessment shows a 30% chance of psychological contamination. Are you sure you want to do this? Marcus didn't hesitate. I've been living with her absence for 6 months. I need to know she's okay, that what we're building is what she wanted. Very well. Voss activated the array, and the room filled with harmonic frequencies that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the brain. Interface established, quantum entanglement stable. You have approximately 10 minutes before the energy drain becomes dangerous. Marcus approached the communication chair, a complex device that would link his consciousness to the quantum network. As he settled into the neural interface, he felt a familiar tingling sensation, not unlike the electric connection he'd shared with Lyrian, but vastly amplified. The world dissolved around him, replaced by a realm of pure thought and sensation. He found himself standing in a vast library that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. The shelves contained not books, but crystallized memories, the collected experiences of every conscious being in the galaxy. Hello, Marcus. He turned to find Lyrian approaching, but she was transformed. Her physical form flickered between different species: human, Velthari, Zentari, Korthikas, if she were simultaneously all of them and none of them. Her eyes still held that infinite depth, but now they reflected the wisdom of countless civilizations. You look different, he said. I am different. The consciousness storm didn't just change the Velthari, it changed me. I'm no longer a single individual, but a collective entity representing all forms of conscious thought. She gestured to the library around them. This is the archive now, just of the ethereal collective, but of every species that has ever achieved sentience. Are you happy? Her smile was radiant. I am complete. For the first time since my people died, I feel truly alive. The loneliness, the isolation, it's gone. I'm connected to every thinking being in the galaxy. I miss you, Marcus said simply. I know. I can feel your grief, your longing. But I'm not gonna meme everywhere. In every act of kindness, every moment of understanding, every choice to build rather than destroy. The humans call it love, but it's really just consciousness recognizing itself in another form. She led him through the library, showing him shelves that contained the memories of species he'd never heard of. The galaxy is older than you know, Marcus. Thousands of civilizations have risen and fallen, each contributing something unique to the collective consciousness. The Velthari's gift was strength and determination. Humanity's gift is hope and adaptability. The ethereals gave empathy and understanding. And now comes synthesis. The different aspects of consciousness learning to work together instead of competing. The refugees aren't just surviving. They're evolving into something new. A meta-species that transcends individual biological limitations. Marcus felt a surge of pride and terror. Are we losing our humanity in the process? No, Lyrian said firmly. You're finding it. Humanity's greatest strength was never your individual achievements, but your ability to bring out the best in others. You're the catalysts that enable other species to reach their potential. She showed him visions of the future cities where different species worked together seamlessly. Starships crewed by beings whose consciousness was partially shared. Children, born with the ability to understand multiple forms of thought simultaneously. Is this what you wanted? Marcus asked. When you sacrificed yourself to create the consciousness storm. I wanted to save consciousness itself from the Veltharius dominance. But what we achieved was so much more. We've created the foundation for a truly unified galaxy, not through conquest, but through understanding. The transformation isn't complete, Marcus observed. There are still species that resist integration, still conflicts between different groups. Change takes time, Lyrian acknowledged. But the seeds are planted. Every generation will be more empathic than the last, more willing to see beyond their own perspective. In 1,000 years, war between conscious species will be as unthinkable as cannibalism is to modern humans. Will you be there to see it? I'll be there to guide it. The quantum consciousness network is self-sustaining now. As long as there are thinking beings in the galaxy, I'll exist to help them understand each other. Marcus felt the communication beginning to fade, the quantum entanglement growing unstable. I don't want to lose you again. You never lost me, Lyrian said, her form becoming translucent. I'm in every refugee child who learns to trust again. I'm in every Velthari warrior who chooses protection over predation. I'm in every human who risks their life to save a stranger. How do I know we're building the right future? Because you're building it together. Not one species dominating the others, but all species contributing their unique strengths to a common goal. That's what consciousness was always meant to be, not a competition, but a collaboration. The library faded around them, but Lyrian's final words echoed in his mind. Take care of our children, Marcus. All of them. Every species. Every individual consciousness. They're the future of everything we've fought to protect. 5 years after the consciousness storm, Marcus stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall of New Terra Station. The venue itself was a testament to interspecies cooperation. Velthari engineering supporting Zentari architectural design, with Korthak technological systems integrated seamlessly throughout. The integration protocols have exceeded all projections, Marcus reported, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Refugee populations have not only stabilized, but begun establishing new colonies across 17 systems. More importantly, the children born in integrated communities show unprecedented levels of empathic development. Admiral Kreshtak, now serving as the Velthari representative, spoke with the measured tones of someone who had learned to value words over weapons. The transformation of my people continues to progress. Our youth no longer feel the compulsion to dominate, they seek to understand. It is ... a strange gift, but one we treasure. The ethereal archive has been fully integrated into our educational systems, added Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the Council's chief science advisor. We're seeing accelerated consciousness development across all species. The next generation will be naturally empathic, capable of true interspecies understanding without technological assistance. Marcus nodded, but his attention was drawn to the observation gallery, where children from dozens of species sat together, their young minds already bridging gaps that had seemed insurmountable to their parents. Among them, he noticed several younglings whose features seemed to blend characteristics from multiple species, not genetic hybrids, but something new. Children whose consciousness had been shaped by the quantum network from birth, who thought in patterns that transcended species boundaries. The real test comes now, announced Councillor Vextar, the Zentari diplomat, who served as the Council's rotating president. The Dominion of Shadows has refused all integration offers. They consider consciousness sharing to be a form of mental contamination. They're not wrong, Marcus admitted. What we've achieved here would be terrifying to any species that values individual mental autonomy above all else. But isolation is no longer an option. The quantum consciousness network spans half the galaxy now. Are we prepared for war? Asked the Korthok representative, though his question carried no eagerness for conflict. We're prepared for defense, Marcus clarified. The Velthari military knowledge, combined with human tactical innovation and Zentari strategic thinking, has created the most effective peacekeeping force in galactic history. But our real strength isn't in our weapons, it's in our unity. Through the great windows of the assembly hall, Marcus could see the New Terra shipyards, where the next generation of vessels was being constructed. These weren't warships in the traditional sense. but consciousness-sharing platforms designed to extend the quantum network to new systems. Each ship carried not just crew, but the collected wisdom of every species in the Alliance. The ethereal archive contains records of similar resistance movements, Alina reported. Throughout galactic history, there have always been species that rejected consciousness evolution. But isolation inevitably leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to extinction. We won't force integration, Marcus said firmly, but we'll make sure the option remains available. The quantum network grows stronger with each new connection. Eventually, the advantages of cooperation will outweigh the fears of mental contamination. As the session concluded, Marcus walked through the station's main habitat ring, observing the daily life of the galaxy's most diverse community. Velthari and human children played together in the gardens. Centauri's scholars debated philosophy with Korthok engineers. Former enemies had become not just allies, but family. He paused at a memorial wall, dedicated to the consciousness storm's victims, beings who had sacrificed their individual existence to create something larger. Lyrian's name was inscribed there, along with thousands of others who had given their lives to protect the right of all species to exist and grow. She would be proud, Alina said, joining him at the memorial. The integration protocols are working better than we ever imagined. The children especially, they're becoming something unprecedented. What do you mean? They're naturally empathic across species lines. They don't see differences the way we do. They see variations on a theme. To them, consciousness is consciousness, regardless of its biological substrate. Marcus smiled, remembering Lyrian's words about the future, evolution in action. More than that revolution, we're witnessing the birth of a new form of consciousness, one that transcends individual species limitations. The next generation won't just cooperate across species lines, they'll think across them. As they spoke, a group of younglings approached the memorial. They came from different species, but they moved with synchronized purpose. Their consciousness, partially shared through the quantum network. One of them, a young human girl with eyes that held depths beyond her years, looked up at Marcus. "Are you the one who saved the voice?" she asked. "I helped," Marcus replied. "But she saved herself. She saved all of us." "She still sings," the girl said We can hear her in the deep places, where thoughts touch other thoughts. She's teaching us how to be more than we were." The children continued their procession, leaving Marcus with a profound sense of completion. The girl's words echoed in his mind as he returned to his quarters, where he had built a small shrine to Lyrian's memory. Not because she was dead, but because she had become something so much more than individual existence. That night, as he prepared for sleep, Marcus felt the familiar electric sensation that had first connected him to Lyrian years ago. For a moment, he could sense her presence in the quantum network, not as an individual, but as the living embodiment of conscious cooperation. "Thank you," he whispered to the darkness. The response came not in words, but in a feeling of profound peace. The galaxy was changing, evolving, becoming something unprecedented in its history. The age of species isolation was ending, replaced by an era of conscious unity that preserved individuality while enabling unprecedented cooperation. Somewhere in the quantum depths, Lyrian's consciousness continued its eternal vigil, protecting the right of all thinking beings to exist, to grow, to dream of futures beyond their current limitations. She had kept her promise. She was there whenever understanding triumphed over violence, whenever cooperation overcame competition, whenever love proved stronger than fear. The children of 47 species would grow up in a galaxy where consciousness was valued above all else, where the strength of one became the strength of all. They would face challenges their parents couldn't imagine, but they would face them together, united by the quantum threads of shared understanding, and in the deepest levels of the consciousness network, where individual thoughts merged into something greater than their sum. Lyrian's eternal voice continued to sing the song of unity, a harmony that embraced all forms of consciousness, all possibilities for growth, all dreams of a future where thinking beings could reach beyond their individual limitations to touch the infinite. The age of true galactic civilization had begun, and it would never end. In memory of all who sacrificed their individual existence to create something greater than themselves. May their consciousness live forever in the choices we make and the love we share.